voting. And I hope that's okay with everyone. And without further ado, Howard, you can do a quick introduction and dive into your magic here.
Well, I don't know what that. Well, thanks, Sally. Appreciate it. It's good to be with all of you. I don't think I know many of you, but maybe I do. Over the years, been doing this a while. I've known Sally for a number of years. I'll just leave it at that. I think it's easier to say it that way. I teach accounting at Eastern Michigan. Been here for 24 years or so, and been involved with AUP for almost all that time, and in various positions. So I'm not in leadership now, and have not been for over 5 years. And I think it's good that we get other people doing it and younger people involved, and I think good things are happening at the AUP in terms of a recent affiliation with AFT. I think that's a very good thing. And I can answer questions about that if you want to. I was not involved in those negotiations, but certainly been involved with AFT organizing for a long time. And I've done a lot of not so much training. Rudy and I have done these trainings at Summer Institute every year, even virtually. I think it's been probably 16, 17 years now we've been doing these trainings, but this isn't the same. Everything's a little different. And I've done these types of analyses many times around the country, especially recently, as universities try to use the pandemic as a weapon to make cuts and changes that they probably shouldn't be making and don't have to make. And we'll talk some about that. And I am a native New Yorker. I was born in Brooklyn, grew up on Long Island, and a huge Met fan, and also a fan of other losing teams like the Knicks, Rangers, and Giants. So I know nothing but misery and loss. And I'll leave it at that, and let's get going. So this is kind of a roadmap of what Sally and I talked about doing here. Spent a decent amount of time on data. The iPad stuff, Rudy and I did a whole 6 hours on iPads, and we'll see how much you guys want to do. But I think for so many of you, especially in CUNY and SUNY, if your institution is in the CUNY or SUNY system, iPads is it. It's the only lifeline you've got for real data. So that's why I want to spend a lot of time with it. For those in the private sector, I know there's a lot of people here in the private sector. We'll also look at that as well. Look at overall health and really have some fun with where the money's coming, where it's going, and then look at some graduation Pell rates. And I use some stuff in the SUNY data, the CUNY data book at the end, and tried to get most of your institutions that are represented here, people who are here today, on here. And if I didn't, I apologize. Okay, first, let me just talk about it. I need to say this everywhere we do one of these things, is we're not doing budgets. And and in terms of the chat, you don't have to wait till the end. I will address your chat questions as they come up. So you put them in and I'll address them. And you could yell out also. Doesn't matter to me if you yell out either. Either way is fine with me. So budgets are just plans, budget holes that allegedly existed, we'll see really don't. And what if you can't get the statements? So first of all, the word budget starts with B and ends with S. I just want to give you guys some tools so you can figure out what's going on. And you've heard about responsibility-centered budgeting and all those fancy accounting phrases that really have no meaning other than their excuses to do what I have at the bottom here. And I know that sounds harsh, but that is what I have seen. So, and this is why we use actual statements, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the audited statements. But of course, the audited statements for the entire CUNY and SUNY system do not exist on the individual campus level. And you guys are not that concerned with how the overall system is doing. And I mean, it matters at some level how the CUNY system is doing and how the SUNY system is doing, but you care about what's going on your campus. And I understand that. And that's where we'll use the iPads data, which is actual data. And we'll look at bond ratings quite a bit. But budgets, they can do whatever they want. There's no rules. They could put in there whatever they want. They could include, exclude, whatever they want. In terms of this presentation, yeah, I will send, what usually happens is as I go through it, I realize I made a mistake here, that number. But as soon as we're done, later tonight, I will make whatever adjustments I have and I'll send it to you guys and it's yours to keep. It's, you don't have to ask you don't have to ask me my permission to use it. So long list of potential data items. And we'll look at all three of these for sure. IPED's integrated post-secondary education data analysis of the U.S. Department of Education. And there's financial operation data on websites, and also sometimes presentations of them on websites, Moody's. It's hard to get both of these. The actual ratings themselves are not free and not open to the public. And it's very difficult to get them even in a public university. Fact books, we certainly use that. Common data set has enrollment data, class size data, all sorts of fun stuff. AU compensation survey, we use a little bit here. And IRS not only works for the private institutions. And if we wanted to get into athletics, I didn't see anything here. I'm just going to be here where athletics is a big deal, but certainly we do a lot of that stuff. I just finished a report with Maryland and those guys. It was a big deal to them. And Rutgers also, it's a huge deal at Rutgers with athletics, where they're throwing a lot of money down the drain. So at places like that, it matters quite a bit. All right. So what school are you at, Mary Rose? Were you a basketball coach, got all that money?
In Bonaventure.
Yeah, well, as a private institution.
He waited till they, got into the semifinals of the NITs, I guess. So
Yeah.
what do you
And
know?
the guy I used to work with here at Eastern, Steve Watson, was your AD, and now he's Steve's a good guy, but he's still still an admin. That's good enough, yeah. I was pretty close to him. I'm talking. He's the AD where Sister Jean is at Loyola Chicago, and
Okay. Yeah, he's definitely a good guy. Great family.
yeah, Steve's a good guy. He is. There's no doubt about that. But he's still an admin, and he still has to do what they say. So anyway, the bond website and ProPublica gets in the news a lot for publishing all sorts of things. They tend to be a little behind these guys, but they're still there. IRS sites for the 990s, a little behind in terms of timing, still pretty good. This one is the best. This last one, and I have a whole page, as we'll see in a bit, on especially in the private sector, to get, and I have some information. So let's just start. I don't know if anyone here is from Manhattanville College or not. Yes, no, maybe. Well, I guess not. But anyway,
I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was waving.
you're waving. Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm going to, this is a training, and I know things are never perfect when we go to these sites, but I'm going to try just to, I want, with a lot of these things, I want to show you what the data, what the raw sites look like. So you see what, when you see it, you'll know what you're getting. And the problem with this site, and is right down here. Let me make this bigger. Right down here, you have to choose a year, which is fine. Then you have to choose just any PDF file on your device. Why they do this is beyond me. Why we have to choose a PDF file to choose from. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so I'm just going to choose one, and then you click validate. And so then they give you a green check. I mean, sometimes it takes longer than it actually went pretty well there. And so then you're ready to go. But now stay with me on that. These instructions are written, by the way, on slide number 10. I go through all the things I'm showing you now on slide 10. I just want to show it to you. And this is a training. This is different than, to me, Sally, we talked about this. To me, showing you, it may seem trivial to you, but I could tell you, if you've never been on this site, you're not going to know what to do. I mean, I'm sorry to say that. It's not that you're not smart. And it took, it just takes a long time to figure this stuff out. And so anyway, so you click find audit information, and then you click search for single audits, search for single audits again, and then you click on general information. So, I mean, there's all those different choices now. And again, these are all listed there, but this is what you wind up with. And so auditee name is, I mean, the auditor is the external auditor. The auditee is the institution that you're interested in. And I think I had Manhattanville in there, and then I just hit and see what happens. And then they say, okay, acknowledge that I've read I've read that. And then they hopefully take me, and they scroll down, and here are my results. I know I did that kind of fast, and then here's the audit itself. Do you click on form? You click on this, and depending on what kind of device you're using, and I'll screen share with you now, and it shows up. Yeah, good. So this is it. Unfortunately for this institution, the most recent one we have is June 20th. Let me talk about data. So most institutions have a fiscal year end that ends in June. Not all, but most. They end in June. This website is going to have the most recent audits. As I'll show you with I forget one of the others that we'll look at in a second. You could just type in the name of the company, of the institution in a Google search box and hope to get what you're looking for. With most of the private institutions, that doesn't work. And again, what I'm showing you now is really only helpful in the private sector. And I know there's a lot of private, like St. Bonaventure or Manhattanville. And so let me show you the dates. Just want to show you what the date issue is. So the date on this issue was signed off. You see that date? Let me make it bigger. Sorry, make that bigger. May 10th, 2021. So they didn't submit their 2020 audit until May. So the 21 audit, we're sitting here March 24th. That's why it's not ready. That is unusually late for any institution, public or private. Unusually late. And the only way you know when they're about to come out is by looking at when the prior years have come out. And that date is when, right about the date, we'll see it on this website, the census website that I'm showing you. And so, I mean, with other private institutions, we don't have to wait as long. We get it right away. And that's, the biggest downside of using audited statements is they tell us about the past, and then you got to wait. And so that's what I have at the bottom here. We have to wait until the next year. Now, in terms of, I looked at Monroe. Let's talk about Monroe Community College, part of the SUNY system. Look at what I write here. It's really discouraging, in my estimation. SUNY first with Monroe. It's good to get the SUNY ones. The audited financial statements do not contain a single piece of data on an individual campus within the SUNY system. Now, I understand SUNY has 66, I believe, institutions within it. So maybe that's asking a lot. However, we're not in California, but the UC system and the CSU system both have campus-specific data within the system audited financial statements. Now, I understand that California and New York are not the same state. And in California, I guess I was part of it. We pushed for this legislatively about 10 years ago now, when Lil Tays was running CFA, California Faculty Association. I'm sure some of you guys know Lil. Sally, I'm sure you know Lil, or know of her, or have heard of her. And we pushed for this legislatively. And I think it's really, if I'm allowed to editorialize, which I'm sorry, I'm going to do anyway, whether you tell me I can't or not. I think one of the things that the people, I mean, you guys, there's how many of you here on a Thursday afternoon? There's 24 of you other than me here wanting to know about financial information. If you're in the SUNY CUNY system, which is probably about half of the people on this call, is my guess, or close to it, don't you want to know more financial information about your own institution? iPads is okay, but it doesn't go as far as it can, and there's limitations to it. And the biggest limitation is timing. And up until 2018, CUNY used to put the iPads data on its website, on the CUNY website for each individual campus before we would see it on the iPads website. They stopped doing that. I don't think anyone protested. I don't think anyone cared at the time, but these are the kind of things that an AUP chapter or conference, in my estimation, should be working or asking legislators for. We want to see what's going on our campuses. It's fine to see the individual, the SUNY as a whole and CUNY as a whole. It's fine to see that. But again, CUNY, the financials do not have any campus-specific financial information, though they do. They don't even report the names of the institutions in the SUNY statements. At least in CUNY, they tell you who the institutions are. And I understand there's only 20-something of them versus 60-something, but how much space would it take to list 64? And I know you can go to the SUNY website and find them, but I just think the audit statement should have them. So we're going to have to use, you see the last sub-bullet point for both SUNY and CUNY, we have to use iPads. So I think it's important. I mean, this is something I wanted to do right up top, because I think, and I'm not going to take a poll, but given from the list Sally gave me, it seems like almost half of you are either at a CUNY school or a SUNY school, which I think makes sense at some level. They're pretty, there's 90 institutions between the two. So, and I know that may be, my only fear is that you may be disappointed. You mean there's nothing? Well, yeah, I'm disappointed also. That's all I could say. I wish I had them. I wish they had them, but this is what we got. And then for Monroe Community College, there's zero financial budget information on the Monroe website. There's just nothing there. It's really, and CUNY, forget it. So Union College, though, which is a private institution, I believe in Schenectady, if that makes sense. Yes, no, let me make this a little.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone here from Monroe?
Yep.
I mean, anyone here from Union?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Okay. So this is what I did for Union. I did a Google search, Union College audited financial data. That means I just typed what I put in the quotes in a Google text box, and what spat out to me, which I'm going to show you right now. And again, the back and forth, all I can say to you is I'm hoping you guys are engaged and deal with me as I go back and forth, because again, this is training. This is not just me showing you things. So here you go. We got 5 years of financials right there without even trying. That's pretty good. To me, and I'm not just being nice or flippant, this kind of thing is indicative of how transparent the university in general is. Most private institutions of this size do not do what I'm seeing here for Union College. And of all the privates here, I think it's the only one I can do this for. I was able to do this for.
Hey,
A lot of the
Howard.
privates tend to, but it depends, and sometimes it changes over time. There's a question?
Yeah, just as far as freedom of information and FOIL and all that, isn't there supposed to be a requirement for them to have the public have access to that, or no?
No, there's no legal requirement that they do. However, again, best practices of not-for-profit institutions, Union College and every private university is a not-for-profit institution. They will argue that if you want to get our financials, go to ProPublica, go to the census.gov site, go to GuideStar for the 990. Why do we have to show it to you? My answer to that is those sites are great, but sometimes they're delayed. And why shouldn't you, the university, show us this right away? The private universities, they believe that their financial information are national security secrets. And I'm not being flipped. They hold these so tight as if somehow we're going to get them anyway. And like the comment said, all this data is required to be submitted in terms of iPads to the federal government. As long as you get a single dollar in federal loan from anybody, that's the rule, then you have to submit that data to iPads. So they'll say, your administration will say to you, well, just go to iPads and get it, you'll be good. And my answer to that is, yeah, I know how to go to iPads, but it's late and it's not the audited statements that you and your board members see. And so the argument to make is, if whatever the board members see, we should see. I don't, database equivalent to, I don't know what mergent mean. I don't know what that word means.
Sorry, we used to use for like corporate research, we used Mergent Online to find financial statements. And I was wondering for CUNY, if there was some sort of equivalent database that, you know,
Not that I'm aware of.
or for public institution. Okay.
And, you know, most public institutions put their financials, like where I work at Eastern Michigan, even my lane place, you know, you just go on the CFO's website. It's not hard to find.
Okay.
Almost any public institution, you're not going to have, that's not part of a system. You know, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania's, they're all part of systems. I mean, you know, Penn State system, the Apache system. So, but Connecticut, they're kind of a system, but not really. Connecticut State is a system, but you can still get the individual campus stuff there. And UConn and Connecticut Health Center, they're very easy to get. University of Rhode Island, University of New Hampshire, these are, you know, one Google search and you got it. So it's public sector. It's a public sector that's not part of a system. It's not even an issue. You just, they're right there. And most of them just put it on their website. Almost all of them put it on. I don't know of any public universities that are not part of the system that don't put their financial statements on a website. The other thing that should be on there, though, is the 990s.
Yeah, totally.
I'm doing a presentation for Scranton tomorrow, and I'm going to show you the dates and how their union chapter was able to get information that, you know, was sooner than it would be published anywhere else. Now, in terms of enrollment data, which is a huge deal to me, especially in the private sector, because as I'll show you, when we look at the revenue distributions of the private institutions as represented here, enrollment is it. I mean, enrollment is the whole story in terms of the revenue piece for a private institution. So you want to get that, enrollment data. And Union College, most places have, you can see where my cursors kind of have an institutional research office. And even Scranton Vice President Provost will be our next president at St. Bonaventure in June. I'm not saying they're great on this. I think the reason, Mary Rose, the reason they gave it up is because they have a union and they're in the middle of collective bargaining. They are right in the middle of collective bargaining right now. So don't take this the wrong way, but presidents who go from unionized environments to non-unionized environments, they're going to feel a little more empowered, I think. I'm not saying you have to watch out. I'm sure the president, I'm sure this person will be wonderful, but yeah, they don't like unions. I mean, I'm sorry to say that. And this isn't a presentation where it had to be a union, but being a union for them made the big difference. But the point is, most of these places, what about the other way from non-union, that's always a problem. They're not used to it. They're never used to the scrutiny and not necessarily the adversarialness, but they're just not used to voice. They're not used to the voice that faculty members have in a union that they don't have in a non-unionized environment. That's why we want unions, and that's why when we can, and we know we can, a place like St. Bonaventure, it's not possible to ever have a union as long as the yeshiva decision is in place, and that's not going to change in any of our lifetimes. And I understand that there's nothing about, oh, you guys should be a union, but you can't. At a place like Union College at St. Bonaventure, that's not a possibility. And you can vote to form one, but they won't recognize you. But presidents who come from non-unionized environments, unionized environments, that's one of the problems with searches these days. The searches are not public. That's the kind of question that was just put in the chat by Christopher Denny. That's the kind of question you would ask a potential candidate for the presidency of a university at a forum those forums basically have stopped around the country. They've stopped existing. They've all gone. So this is the slide I was talking about. So again, this is 990s and when we see them. And so when we see them on GuideStar or the equivalent site. And sometimes we see them a little sooner on ProPublica, but I really haven't found that ProPublica is that much quicker. These sites are, the IRS site theoretically is a little better, but usually they have to vet it first and go through it. So who knows? And by the time they get it, GuideStar usually has it. So for a fiscal year ending in May of 21, which is what Scranton is, we're not going to, the due date, look at the due date. They get 4.5 months after the fiscal year is submitted. Then they get another 3 months extension just for breathing, just saying we're alive. Then they get another 3-month extension for more breathing. In other words, these 2 3-month extensions, you don't have to say anything other than I want an extension. I'm not being full. That's really it. All you got to say is I want one. You don't have to give an excuse. And so it takes not quite a year before it's due. And we were able to get it in Scranton about a month ago because they made it part of the collective bargaining process. And we would have had to wait till the end of this year. And so anyway, we'll go from there. So that's that. Let's talk about iPads. And so I'm going to spend some time. If you guys, this is training, I understand that. And you can request that directly from the university, and these are available before guys start. Yeah, and that hopefully, to me, what Marie just put in the chat is private, nonprofit, a separate category. So the question that Peter asked, so that's great at NYU, and I think it should happen to everyone. But let's go to, we're going to go right to the question that was just asked about private versus not. We're going to look for that. So here we have all this is the link I put in the presentation. And obviously, since I just clicked on the link and got here, when you get the presentation, you'll actually be able to just click on the link and get here. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having to type it in, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, these are all the different things that iPads has. The ones that we use, and Bonnie, are you on this call? Did I see you on this name? Bonnie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So you could chime in whenever you like, young lady. Bonnie does this also around the country. So the ones we use are look up an institution. You want to just look at one and just see what's out there. The one we use the most by far is compare institutions, where you can look at one institution, a lot of variables over a lot of years, or a lot of institutions, a lot of variables over a lot of years. And so let me answer the question that was just asked by Peter. And I'm going to do it by clicking on compare institutions. And so let's just put St. Bonaventure. So I'm just going to start typing the name. You see it comes up right away, and I click on it. And then I want variables. So now you got a list of things. These are different fields in iPads. And as it's in the presentation, the fields that matter the most are right where my cursor is, where the money is and how many people work there. I use enrollment quite a bit. This is for tuition, student charges I use to get tuition. I use fall enrollment quite a bit. Graduation rates we have in here, I use that in here. Pell Grants, the percentage of students receiving Pell Grants, I use that as well. But the one I use the most is this one. So right now, what you should, hopefully, make sure you guys are seeing this. Yeah. So Peter, to answer the question that you put on here, look what they have there are 4 different categories for what, well, 3 really. 4th is kind of messed. Public institutions, GASB 3485. That's any public institution. The individual campuses in CUNY, SUNY would be in here, or any public institution on its own would be in there. Private, not-for-profit. That's, okay, so to answer, that is St. Bonaventure. St. Bonaventure is a private, not-for-profit. A private for-profit would be, you guys help me. I mean, we don't do any work with those.
Trump University.
Trump University. There you go. I don't think that exists anymore, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they have any data. Anyway, public universities using FASB, they broke it up from here. Public using FASB in Pennsylvania, Penn State and the public universities use private their financials look more like private university financials than the public. Delaware and Pennsylvania are the ones that, where my cursor is, they fit that. That's where Dell, but you guys are not in there. The ones, all the private universities here, though, are going to choose this one. And if you are looking for St. Bonaventure and you chose this one or that one by mistake, what would happen when you went to ask for the data, it would be blank. There would be nothing coming out of it. So, and it's a very common mistake when you, and that's why the question, I wanted to get to the question, you know, Peter, the question you brought up was, I was going to show you later, but you brought it up now. You see, you know, you see these two here and, you know, your mind, you just want to get to the data and you quickly just hit, you know, they both say private. I'm just going to hit private. But that word, not for versus not for profit. So all the private institutions, you hit this, all the public institutions, you hit that. So that's the beginning of the whole thing. Now, if I go back and I want to start over, I always, you know, let's say I want to start over and look up an institution. I want to show you what that looks like. Again, you get to this institution name box. Make sure I'm, by the way, if I'm not screen sharing, just like when I'm teaching, just let me know.
You're good.
Okay. So let's just stay with State Bonaventure since I started with them. And by the way, there was one institution within CUNY I could not even find in iPads, and that was the Labor Center. I don't know if anyone's here is from the Labor Studies Center. They're not in iPads, which is very disturbing. So anyway, so I click on St. Bonaventure, and now you get a different kind of screen. So this is, you know, this is right now I did look up an institution. And look up an institution I use when I just want to see what's in there. I'm not trying to collect a lot of data and bring it into Excel, which I do with compare institutions. Here, I'm just trying to see what's out there. I don't use institution profile because they kind of truncate things and they don't do things the right way. Reported data, and we'll have all the fields. But look at the orange. The most recent year is 2020. And that's the problem with iPads. Now, as I put in the presentation, iPads finance is due to the feds on 4/15/2022 for fiscal year 2021. The finance iPads data is a roughly 20, depending, to 24-page PDF file, which I'm going to show you what it looks like in a second. If you're on a campus, CUNY, SUNY, where you can't get the financials, you want to get the iPads data, and you want the most recent data, April 15th is 21 days away. For most of these campuses, this PDF document exists either in the Office of Institutional Research, in the Provost's office, in the office of the controller, whoever that is, or even the president's office. They have this document, probably almost certainly by now. And again, collective action always works best. Rudy and I always say, if you can't be a union, act like one. And an AUP chapter on a campus or a state conference like we have here, if you want to see the 2021 data for any of the CUNY or SUNY system institutions, if you don't ask for it now, we're not going to get it. And it depends on the year. We usually get it around either Christmas time or early to mid-January. That's a long time from now. April 15th is not a long time from now. Baseball season starts before that. Let's go Mets. You know, they're going to, I'm sorry, I love my Mets. They're going to let us down because they just do. It's just, sorry, I'm not more excited. Anyway, you should ask, but you individually shouldn't ask. You should ask as a chapter in writing. And again, the people you should ask are the Office of Institutional Research, who in almost every case reports to the provost. And because it's finance, it's possible that the chief financial officer has looked at this before it's sent in also. It doesn't hurt to ask. And let me show you. So now, without any further ado, I have pictures in the presentation. I took pictures of, well, let me just go back and show you what I did. But I want to, I think it's better to actually work with it again. So this is Lehman Colleges. You see, it says CUNY Lehman right there. And this is the fields, and there's a 2020. And then what I'm showing here on this next page for Union College on the back is how what's in the audited statements matches what's in iPads. So, and I'm going to show you what these boxes, these ugly boxes look like. And then some more screens. And then I have 3 more screens from Monroe Community College. And then I'm going to get to and then the private sector, they have a slightly different layout, which we're about to see. I had that with Manhattanville. I have 2 different revenue screens. So I have about 5 different screens in the presentation. And we'll look at a public in a second. So we'll do St. Bonaventure, and then we'll look at a public one just in a bit. So let me get my iPads back to you guys. So if I click on finance, by the way, what I do, and Bonnie, I don't know if you do this, I print this out and create a PDF file right away of it, because it's, to me, it's always easier to work with PDF files because you could search for them, you could look at them, but you know, that's personal preference. I'll be honest, that's not a big deal. That's just personal preference. So you scroll down, and to me, the first place you look is you have a balance sheet. And let me make this a little bigger, not that bigger, but this bigger. That's better. Okay. So this is the balance sheet. You know, we're talking about St. Bonaventure for 2020, and that's the assets. They say it's a trunk. And the reason why the audit financial statements are better, they're basically giving us 3 different assets. Now, when I do a lot of these presentations, there really are 3 assets that matter: investments, plant, and everything else. I'll give you that. That they kind of, you know, that really is it. But it'd be nice to see more than this. But this is this year, and that's last year. And the thing we're going to see in financial statement after financial statement for 21 is the value in these investments. The average endowment went up 26% from 2020 to 2021 around the country. So even though these guys invest in all the wrong things, they invest in hedge funds when they shouldn't be. Even blind squirrels did well. Then they have liabilities. They just give you one liability, debt. And then we're going to talk about the reserves and the net assets. So this is a training just to get some terminology on the table. Assets equals liabilities plus net assets. And in the corporate sector, which many of you are familiar with, many of you came from the corporate sector, or certainly, certainly invest in the corporate sector. In the corporate sector, it's assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. But there are no shareholders in the not-for-profit sector. So that's what net assets are. And net assets are broken up into various categories. And in the private sector, as we'll see when we look at the financials, they look a little different. They have unrestricted and then restricted. They're now called without donor restrictions and with donor restrictions. iPad still uses the old language. That changed in 2018. This breakup of 3, 1, 2, 3, there's only 2 categories of net assets in the private sector. And that started in 2019. They went from 3 to 2. Well, less transparency is what universities want. And that's what they got. They get to change accounting rules because they run the show. So let me see if I could just show you. Let me see if I got some financials. that I could show you. Anyone here from Utica College? No, yes, maybe. No, I'm showing it anyway. So Utica College, this is their financials. Again, they have a May 31st year end. So if we look at the balance sheet, see net assets, there's two categories, without donor restrictions and with donor restrictions. That's all you see. Whereas in iPads, what iPads calls these are, they call unrestricted without donor restrictions, and these two together, restricted, they call with donor restrictions. Again, these are kind of little things that I think if you're in the private sector, I think you want to know. So next is a little more specifics on the land and the buildings, which doesn't really help us much. I guess they tell you if there's any new construction. That's the only thing you learn there. And the next screen I go to, I know I'm skipping stuff, but tuition and fees, net of the allowance. And they tell you the allowances, and that's the discounting. And we'll talk about the discounting. Got a little tiny bit from the state, not much, obviously, and grants and contracts. So that's all this here. COVID grants are going to be in there, as we'll talk about. Auxiliaries, just to get the terminology right at the table. Auxiliaries equals housing, dining. I spelled auxiliaries wrong. Need to spell that better, sorry. I'm just going to say AUX. Housing, dining, student union, bookstore, athletics, parking, conference centers, typically, camps. That's what goes in auxiliaries. That's the kind of revenue that goes in there. And then they have total revenues. To me, the best part of iPads is right here. And this is a little further afield, but we're doing it now, so let's just look. And this is instruction. The expenses. So what's called functional expense categories: instruction, research, public service, academic support, student services. This is the same in every iPads. Now, if you want to know what do those things mean, I don't know what those categories mean. Well, in the presentation, which I'm coming back to now, on pages 25 and 26, I use I just took it right from the glossary. They have a glossary. This is the 2021 glossary. I just took the definitions right from the glossary. The one thing I do want to point out is what I've highlighted in yellow. I don't know if there's any librarians on the call. Any librarians here? Yes, no? There's always a couple, but for whatever reason, the librarians have been mixed together with them being the deans. Why librarians and deans are in the same expense category, I've never fully understood. I've always believed librarians should be up here in instruction, but it's been this way since Moses took those tablets, or Mel Brooks took the tablets down in History of the World Part 1, when he took them down from Mount Sinai. If you guys have seen History of the World Part 1. Speaking to a New York conference, I'm hoping there are some Mel Brooks fans in there. And by the way, his recent book is just, he's 95. His book was just to die from. It was just so great. But I digress. Anyway, I don't know what they're doing here. But again, you need to know these things. These are things you need to know. Thank you for Mel Brooks shot. But this is the kind of stuff that you need to know. Also up here, let's look at this last one. Excludes expense of academic administration. So the deans aren't on here, the provost isn't on here, and that's not in it. Instruction is really us, if I'm allowed to say that. The main category of them is not really academic support, because it has all these categories here. Public service, academic support, student services are mixtures of administrative and non-administrative functions, of union and non-union employees, of staff and administrative employees, if you know what I'm saying. But the two categories that are pure us and them, if I'm allowed, sorry to use that UE kind of language, but anyway, are instruction, us, and this one is all them, no matter what they say. Institutional support is nothing but admin, and typically upper level admin. That's what institutional support is. So you can see in general, that kind of tells the story. Now, these definitions are right there for everyone to see, but unfortunately, universities apply them differently. For example, there are some employees in a university will put in, one university will put in this category that another would put in another category. We have no control over that other than you asking them, who are you putting in institutional support? Who are you counting? So when I go back to the iPads number, so here's, to me, is one of the key things that I want you to take out of here, is this screen right here in iPads. They break up iPads in 2015, as I'll show you, used to have a lot different, more categories. So for St. Bonaventure in 2020, the total expenses was 62 million. 57 million were the total expenses in 19. Of that 62 million, 28 million was salaries. No manipulation. They can't mess with it. No allocation, no BS, pure cash that they paid to people in the different categories. That's how much cash they paid to people who they called administrators, 4.4 million. The year before it was 4.2 million. So, and we look at and we try to get a time, we make a time series of this. See
Where does
what
the basketball coach's salary go?
they're likely, auxiliaries could be either in here, it could be in here. I think they even, I think they tell you up here where they put athletics. I think they kind of tell you, there's a question. You could see, Rose, you see that? You guys see the screen?
Yeah, yeah.
You see that dot? Most places put it in here, but you see St. Bonnie's is dotted there. So if again, these are good things to add. It's exactly the kind of question you guys should be asking on this training. And you could see, that's why this number, you could see the coach's salary is right there. It's not in auxiliary because the coach's salary is even bigger than that. Most institutions put athletics in here where my cursor is, but you can see there's a choice. To me, that's just not right. I mean, that's just not the way it should be, but I don't make the rules. They have the leeway and they chose it. Can you get head count? Okay, we're going to work on head count. Another question, Peter, could you just wait about 10 minutes or 15 minutes on head count? I promise you I'm getting there. In seeing what is being spent on institutional support. So the question, Vanna, so here's the thing. All we see is this. This is it. This is all we're going to see. We don't see anything else. It's unfortunate, but that's it. Now, let me just go back. Just bear with me. If we go back to reported data, I want to show you what the finance field looked like back in 2015 and how iPads at the behest of university administrators changed it. This is the expense look from 2015. Salary for every category. They told you salaries, benefits, plant, depreciation, interest, and other, and then prior year amount. Now what we get is this and this. And that's all. Now all we're told in 2016 forward, we get this number and that number and nothing else. That's all we see. And there's nothing we can do about that. However, there is hope. And the hope I'm going to show you is in Monroe's or Union. Someone's here from Union, right? Didn't someone say they're from Union here? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just bear with me. Let me find Unions. So I'm now going to share with you guys Union Colleges, which is a private institution, obviously. So what you see on the screen now, audited by a Big Four accounting firm, KPMG. In the back, and I'm going to go all the way to the notes. So just bear with me. I know I'm going fast, but I'm going to go fast sometimes. Here we go. In the notes, they have what's called the natural expenses. What they have done here is they've broken down the expenses, not exactly in the same iPads category, instruction and research combined in one, academic support. These all look familiar. And they break them down the way iPads used to break them down. This started in the private sector in 2018. What you see on the screen now, That's why it's so important to get the audited statements. IPEDS used to do this, but doesn't anymore. And even better, Union College doesn't combine the salaries and wages and the benefits into one, number, like a lot of them do. So you could figure out what the benefit rate is. By the way, a benefit rate equals total benefits over total salaries. So when they tell you there's a 60 or 70% benefit rate, they fall, you know what, and for most of these places in the 30s. But you could see the salary spent from year to year. And it really does tell a story. So you could see instruction went from 27.6 down to 26.4. The total salaries went down as well. And I have a slide that looks at that. And so you can kind of see what's going on. I don't want that. I want this. So I just want to show you guys, just bear with me a second. I want to get unions just to show you how different it looks, or not different, but how it's not quite the same. So just bear with me a second. So I'm sharing you now Union Colleges, the same note that I showed you with Utica. So now this is Utica on the screen here. See the name of the file, Utica. Salaries, first of all, they had like what they had as the columns, they have as the rows. So, but the information, see how they combine salaries and benefits into one number? That's what most of them do. And they also combine instruction and research. And again, these categories, as you see here. So at least we got something, and I got a couple of slides that examine what we can do with this data, looking at this data. Next, I want to look at, I want to go back to IPEDS, and I want to look at a public institution within CUNY to show you what it looks like, if that's okay with you guys. Is there anyone from CUNY here? I assume there is.
I am.
What place are you from?
I actually work for the PSC.
Oh, you work for, so, okay, well, you mind if I look up John Jay?
That'd be great.
By the way, let me just type in CUNY for you and show you what comes up, and something really juicy. So the question that is a good question. And that is very common. The question that's in the chat, what about a dean or an admin that teaches a class? Is that an instruction? Most of them are putting that in instruction, but they don't have to. They don't have to. Some of them just take what some of the people who do the IPEDS dumps to the feds, they just take the salaries of that dean or admin who's taught the class, whatever's on their W-2, they throw it in IPEDS. Some distinguish it. So it's a good question, but the answer is it depends. But certainly a good question. So if you look at CUNY, you see all the institutions are listed here, but there's one really nice one. See that guy? System Office. And a system office to me is always I use the word sink, and there's not much here, but there is a system office finance. I'll get to John Jay in a bit, and I have something on John Jay in the presentation, but I just want to show you what the expense distribution looks like for the system office. Now they're putting a lot in instruction, but you can see there's a lot of institutional support and academic support, but look how much money is going to the system office. Oh my effing God, is all I got to say to that. I'm not saying the people in the system office don't do good things and there aren't good people there and it's not needed with a system of 23 campuses all over a very large and diverse city where, my home city where I was born and raised. But really, that seems like a lot of money to me. That's just me. And I think there's got to be, so let's look at John Jay. So now we're going to look at John Jay, and I'm going to show you their expenses. So John Jay, College of Criminal Justice. So I just type in John Jay and it comes up, and I click on it. I go to reported data, and hopefully, even on doing it fast, hopefully you're picking up on how to get this stuff. So then I go to finance, and I want to show you the point I'm going to make on the expenses. They also have institutional support. They have $31 million in administrators, and the salaries, they paid $21 million in 2020 to administrators at John Jay. They also paid all that money to the administrators, and every CUNY institution is going to have this, in addition to having, as does the system office. So let me just show you, I want to show you the revenue stream, the revenue screens, which look different for first the net position, the net assets, which are always negative, and I have a couple of slides on that. Net assets and unrestricted net assets are artificially, I'm going to say artificially negative in the public sector due to the inclusion of pension and retiree health liabilities that do not belong on a university's balance sheet. And when I say they don't belong, let me discuss why, and just bear with me and I'll show you where I had that little discussion. I know I'm bouncing around some, but you know, the questions come and this is what we got to do. So I'm back on slide number 51. Sorry to go so far afield, but it's slide 51. A place like John Jay seems like they have negative reserves or negative net assets. But starting in 15, college universities put state pension on their own balance sheets to make things look worse. This is done at the behest of university. I'm not being flippant here. This is the way it is. And they put and for the CUNY system, it's retiree health. That's the big one. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and all analysts feel that these state pension funds are first and foremost obligations of the state. And here's the big one. And Bonnie, if you have you worked on a couple of these where you've had to make these adjustments? Bonnie, if I'm allowed to put you on the
Yep.
spot and answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without, you know, let's say the CUNY system has an AA2 bond rating for the CUNY system. But they also have negative unrestricted net assets. Or so it appears. If the CUNY system had negative unrestricted net assets and negative reserves, they would be bankrupt and they would not have an AA2 bond rating. Remember, there's AAA, there's AA1, and there's AA2. That's pretty high. They have a high bond rating because the bond raters realize that those retiree health obligations, mostly retiree health and CUNY, and the state pension obligations are obligations that Albany has, not John Jay College, not the CUNY system office. So, I mean, and how we make the adjustments, and you know, maybe Bonnie could chime in. It's not that simple a deal. That's almost an entire workshop on how to make those adjustments. So, I just wanted to make you aware of that. So I wanted to show you the revenue streams, what the revenues look like in the public sector. They look different. The stream, it looks different. So there's tuition and fees, federal grants, state grants, local grants, auxiliaries, and other sources. Then they have non-operating revenues. And the big non-operating revenue is the state appropriation. Now, in the CUNY system for John Jay, the local appropriation is the money they get from the city of New York. For Monroe Community College, which I do not believe is in the CUNY system, it's in the SUNY system. Monroe Community College does not get any city university money because they're not in the city of New York. However, Monroe Community College has a big number here. They get a local county appropriation at Monroe. I believe they're in Monroe County, if I'm not mistaken. I think Monroe Community College, isn't that right? As my New York mind thinks about where they are. And thank you for that. Monroe
Yes,
County.
they are.
All right, I was just guessing there, but that was
And
an
underfunded compared to what they should be getting.
that's so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the funding. We're going to talk all about that. And you may come away with a slightly different idea when you look at where Michigan and other states are funded, but just bear with me on this. So this is where you find how much the state gave and how much the city gave, right here. Or in Monroe Community Colleges would be how much the county gave. You see it right there. Federal non-operating grants, those are Pell Grants. Let me tell you the way Pell Grants work, because I know you know everyone knows what a Pell Grant is. It's financial, it's financial support for college for low-income students. But the way I view it, and Bonnie, you may have a different view, I view it as just revenue. It's tuition revenue in a different line. Universities say, oh, we don't really count that as revenue. Well, what do you think it is? The universities get that money. It's not like they get the Pell Grant money and it has to be spent on those students specifically. No, they collect that money and it goes to the same pot as a student who's paying full sticker price. Pell Grant revenue is pure revenue. So whenever you see the federal government or the US Congress debating about the size of Pell Grants, who's eligible, how many years they could be eligible, what is counted as an eligible expense, you should be rooting for more. As if you didn't know that, but it goes directly to the revenue. It's a direct revenue to a university. And I also have something at the end, which I know I have only an hour left and we will get there. The percentage of students receiving Pell Grants at all the institutions represented here. And I'm not making fun of anyone. And you know, when I put data, I'm about to show you guys a lot of data from a lot of the institutions here. I am not making any comments about any of you individually. I'm just reporting what these universities are. So please don't take anything personally. When you see something that puts you, that a financial metric that puts your university in not so great light, don't get mad at me, first of all. Don't get depressed yourself, secondly. Just accept it. I'm just showing you what it is, okay? I'm not, there's no personal or political statement being made. I even watched the hearings today. I've been watching 4 days of hearings, so I know what political statements look like and sound like, and I've certainly seen them. Though, if I'm allowed to say, the guy today from Florida who went to high school with Justice Brown, he was great. I thought he was just the way he talked about Ketanji Brown when she was in high school was just, to me, just play that over and over again, and like 90 people in the Senate will vote for her. Okay. I'm just saying, maybe I'm wrong about that. Anyway, so that's all the fun. Now, this is going to be for later, but you guys asked. So I'm now going to show you the human resource field. And if you don't mind, I'm going to stay with John Jay. So the human resource field tells us, make sure I answer, who works at the universities and what do they do? And that's pretty important stuff to me. I mean, I want to know who works there. So this human resource field, it has all these parts, and I view it, you know, I use different things for different, let me see if I can make that bigger. They're not letting me do it. So I'm going to make it a little smaller there, get more in there. So I use these things differently. No, you need to come down. There we go. Yeah, not perfect, but it's okay. Okay, that's about the best I can do. So the first part has the full-time instructional staff by academic rank and tenure status. I believe IPEDS is best at HR for two things. One, faculty by rank. And when I say rank, I mean tenured, tenure track, non-tenure track. And as a subset to that, I'll just say 1A, well, I'll just go 2. Number of part-time faculty and the number of graduate assistants. The dollars are only available for full-time faculty on IPEDS. We at the AUP survey is really good for faculty by rank and how much is paid. And we even have something, we have a new field on part-time faculty. We have new field that's added 3 years ago on gender, on salaries between male and female faculty members. And I think that's tremendously helpful. It's a step forward that IPEDS has not taken yet. And I'm proud that we've done that. I think the AUP survey is good for that. The other thing it's good for is the non-instructional employees. And this is the administrators. So I'm just going to go to the fields that I think that I use. I mean, it's I'm giving the training and I'm going to show you what I use. So this is the first one you see. And tenure track, non-tenure track. So I think it's helpful for that. You get to see all that. And The non-tenure track is on an annual contract or less than an annual contract. So I think that's the first thing it's helpful for. Then we get to the admins. So just bear with me. I'm going to get to the admins. Faculty say, this is it. So this right here, part G4, these are all the non-instructional staff. And these are the categories. These categories have definitions. Again, library, student, and academic affairs, all lopped into one. It's a lot to lop into one. And this is the total dollars, and that's the number. So you create an average. Management, just eyeballing this at John Jay. They are classifying at John Jay 171 people as managers who got paid in 2000. Now this is 2021. We're 1 year ahead. They got paid $20 million. That to me looks about an average of about 120,000 per manager. You don't know which ones, but at least you got something. This is the question that was asked earlier by, if I could scroll up and see who asked it. I'm just trying to, Peter, you asked, I think you asked this question earlier. So I'm trying to, it's a little late, Peter, from when you asked it, but I'm answering it now. This is, so right here, how many admins, upper level what's called managers, and that's how many there were, and the total pay to those guys. And you look at this over time. And the other categories, most of these other categories are in New York State, unionized employees. And the one that has gotten the biggest hit, the category that's gotten hit the most in terms of cutting is right here, office and administrative support, which is mostly your administrative and secretarial staff. And you could see, just eyeballing it, the average salary here is right about 45, 50,000, somewhere in there. So good stuff. Doesn't get better than that. Faculty salaries, I still think the AEP survey is good for faculty salaries. However, I'm going to go to the end. Not that iPads doesn't have this. So boom. Last thing in iPads, what do you got? You've got the number of professors, associates, assistants, instructors, lecturer, no rank, and you get the total. This is the average salary on a monthly basis. You can multiply that typically by 9. So you multiply the weighted average salary by 9 to get the annual one. For most of these places, that's the way you do it. Yeah, I'm typing a lot in the chat. I'm sorry about that, but so what? You guys could handle it, I think. So you can see at John Jay, the average full professor makes over $1 million. The average faculty member makes just over $1 million at John Jay. I mean, $100,000. Just over 100. So, and I know a lot of time on iPads, but I think it's what I wanted you to get out of this tool, get out of this session. To me, there's nothing more important than that, than iPads. Let's talk about, so I did this for Sarah Lawrence. Is there someone here from Sarah Lawrence? I think I recognize someone that I've seen before. Yes, no, I threw it on the registration. Hello? No.
Yes, we're here, 2 of us.
Bingo. So I've seen you guys before. I know I have.
Yes.
Unless I'm old and I'm missing it, I think I've seen you guys. And
No, yeah, I was here last year.
Okay, good. So anyway, so this is Sarah Lawrence. The screen I just gave you guys, what I just showed you, this is what I do with it. And I know you guys may not be experts in Excel, but if you're here on 4:39 on a Thursday afternoon in March, I think all of you are capable of doing this. That's a wild guess on my part, that you guys are capable of taking a number as a denominator, and that is the numerator, and getting an average. I know you can do it. It can definitely happen. So, all right. Now, the iPads data feedback report, they have in it before the thing I use the most are the peers. So what I've done here is and there's 2 ways the peers come to us via iPads, and we'll see it in a second. One, the admin picks, if I can spell, picks the peers. And two, the admin does not pick the peers, and iPads uses some method to come up with the peers. It's not exactly clear what they do, but. And another thing, again, I know this is not a session on advocacy and building and all that, but if I just bear with me for 20 seconds, you guys got to be involved in who these peers are on your campus. It makes a big difference. And they pick peers that sometimes just at the face of it doesn't make sense. So you guys tell me, you guys tell me, does it, yes. So what you see here on the screen right now, I copied right from the purpose of the peers. That's up to you. This is the peers that iPads, that to me, is this a peer for salary, for spending on instruction, for how much spending on administration? This is what the peers are for. How to answer your question, all those, everything. And these words here, I didn't write any of this. This box is this reddish box. I just took right from the iPads data feedback report. But again, I'm sorry, I'm going back again, going back to iPads. I can't help myself. So, because I want to show you guys. It's a legit question. You guys have questions, I'm going to answer them. So, can I stay with John Jay? Will that bother you guys if I stay with John Jay? Okay. So there's the reported data. If I click on iPads data feedback reports, you can get the previous ones. This is the most current one. I click on PDF because I love PDF files and they're easy to use. And magically, in a second, boom, right on my screen, which you now see, is what's called the iPads data feedback report. And you can see the name of the institution, CUNY John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And the first thing is they tell us the custom comparison group chosen by CUNY includes the following 24 institutions. And then the iPads data feedback report have 23 graphs, which I describe in a second in the presentation, and I'm not going to go through them all. I'm not so sure how useful they are, but at least they're graphs. And I'll show them in a second. I'm about to show you them. Let me just show you those before. I'll get back to the individual ones here. Where are they? Here they are. On page 46, these are the 23 figures that they have that they compare John Jay to the average of the 23. So if I could just I'll just show you one of them. I'll show you one you care about, faculty salaries. So let me just show you one on faculty salaries to show you what it looks like. Well, first, core expenses per FTE enrollment. So the dark blue is John Jay, the light blue is the peers. So they claim you spend more than your peers, but again, these might not be the right peers. And then they have salaries. So according to this is what I find all the time. The peers that are chosen by the administration tend to look like this. They tend to pick them where the salaries are lower. I'm sorry to be so flippant. I'm not, you could call me whatever you want, but I'm not saying anything I don't really believe in. So to me, the way to get involved in the peers, the first thing to do when you get to the peers, and I'll go through these, is let's at least look at these non-empirical qualitative variables that are in iPads, just to see. For me, geography matters a lot. I don't think John Jay should have peers that are far afield. That's just me. I mean, let me see. I'm just going to look at the John Jay peers to see how many of them are far away.
Boise State was like the first one, I think.
Boise State,
Like, right?
Cal State, 5 in a row from Cal State, East Tennessee State, East Washington. So the first 9 are not anywhere near John Jay. And to me, I'm not down with that. I'm just not down with that. So also degree of urbanization. City, large, mid-sized, small suburb. Carnegie research is an important variable. You know, what's the Carnegie? Is it R1, R2? That's not what they use. That's not the Carnegie classifications. I want to show you, just let me show you the variables. Just bear with me. I want to show you the variables. I want to show you what a variable looks like. So I'm ready to show you. So under institution characteristics, they have all these different things here. You can see awards, institutional classifications. And so under institutional classifications, I scroll down. This is where the one I use is right here, Carnegie classification. These are all older Carnegie. You see, they read, and here they kind of tell you what they are. So associates, and then they have different classifications of the associates. Then doctoral. What used to be called R1 is now called doctoral research very high. What all of you say, oh, it's an R1, right? You guys all use that phrase. This is what an R1 is now called. Doctoral universities, high. Doctoral professional universities. These are places that typically have dental schools, medical schools, maybe law schools, stuff like that. Then masters, large, so baccalaureate special. So you get to see what the Carnegie classification is of the peers. And to me, it's a big variable as to whether the peers that you're looking at make sense. But to me, I still think geography's one with me. And then religious affiliation makes a big difference. Those of you in the private sector, as you know, so at Cougar College, Pierce has been a football for many years, faculty and now booted out of the process. Well, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So here's Union College, 31. That's a lot of peers, by the way. That's a lot. To me, 31 is too many. But this is what they've chosen by the administration. And you guys could look at it. Again, you're going to have access to this presentation. So I mean, these are, at least it looks to me, they're mostly geographic. At least they're in this, the eastern part of the country. Manhattanville, also chosen by the administration, all New York, New Jersey. So when you see John Jay picking ones from California, and these kind of makes you wonder. College of Staten Island, Portland State. I don't know what to say about that. Anchorage is right next door, I believe. Right next door to Staten Island. You got to take a left turn and go 3,000 or 5,000 miles and you're there. I don't know about that either. Monroe, peers were not chosen by the Monroe Community College. So this is the statement they make. Using subject institutions' characteristics, a group of comparison institutions was selected for you. And these are some of the things they looked at. They looked at that Carnegie classification, enrollment and size. So that's what they chose. And there's plenty that are not from New York. They got Texas. Our youngest goes there. Our youngest is at that school right there, taking class there right now, as we speak, for whatever that's worth. I'm just saying. Any Tina Fey reference is always good. It's always a winner with me. Anything Tina Fey does, I'm all for. Here's Queensboro. And again, these tend to be all regional. They're all regional. And Gutman, also chosen by the peers. These are not regional. I don't know what's going on here. But someone wrote you got booted out of the process. Don't get booted out of the process. If you work at Gutman, I don't know if anyone here is from Gutman. Anyone here from Gutman? Yes, no, maybe. I guess not. But I don't know. I'm not saying these are bad peers, but Vaughn College of Aeronautics, not chosen, but I threw this out here because in doing work for another one, I noticed this. Their bond rating got upped. I thought that was always good. Is anyone here from Vaughn? I know a couple of people signed up. Cost of living, that's a good, yeah. Cost of living is not that they don't have that in iPads. Malloy I grew up in Merrick. Malloy is in Rockville Center. Anyone here from Malloy? We're going to talk about, is it easy to look up bond ratings? We're going to get that in a second. I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about bond ratings. The answer is no. And I'll talk about why. So here is Malloy. This is the kind of, besides those qualitative ones, I also look at empirical variables to see if they make sense. Is there a tool to generate your own peer group? Yes. Yes. So the question that William asked, let me go back to iPads. So just let me start over and show you what that means. So if you go look up an institution, you could look it up by, you could choose a group. So you could choose, am I sharing this with you? William, is this, I think you asked this.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
Let's see
okay.
it.
You could choose what state, the region, the sector, public or private. You could choose any of these, and Carnegie classification, you could pick the ones you want. Degree of urbanization, you could click the things you want. Institutional size, what's the enrollment, and you could create your own peer group. You guys see, you
I
guys all
think
seeing
that's
this?
very useful.
It is very useful. It is. Unfortunately, you know what always happens when we do this? That you always get one or two like, what WTF that come from? And then you realize, well, what's in the criteria that you picked? So be careful what you wish for. But I'll be honest with you, I've had so much fun doing this stuff. You just kind of play around and you wind up with who you wind up with who you want to wind up with. So what page? I just got this right from Look Up an Institution, right from the homepage. Here, start over. That's good. This is start over. Click Look Up an Institution. Boom. Right here, by group. Right there. Basically right from the front page. It's right on the front page. How do you want? See, I was clicking, it defaults to this one. It defaults to typing in the name. But if you click on group, and you can upload your own file and do it by variables, I find that to be those to be very difficult. But you can look for HBCUs, land grants. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. So, told you iPads was fun. So anyway, for Malloy, the peers they chose, you can see Malloy is kind of toward the bottom in enrollment and the endowment size and the endowment per. So I'm not saying they're not good peers, but I don't know about these first two. These, I'm not getting that. Is what they chose. And these are the graphs we talked about those. Let's talk about bond ratings. So we're gonna get to where do we find the bond ratings and the difficulties with that. So first, financial statement names, this is what it means. And if you took accounting as an undergrad or a grad student, these are the statements you learned about. Unfortunately, in the public and the private university sector, they have different names. You can see the first two have different names. I don't make the rules. Don't get mad at me. There's no statement of shareholder equity in the not-for-profit sector, but at least we got this being the same. So we got that. And we talk about net income and cash flows. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the phrase, the accrual method. The accrual method means you count tuition revenue when the student is billed and before they pay. And the cash method, you only count tuition revenue when the check is received. And you would think they all use the cash method, but they don't. That's what accrual versus cash means. And we talked about net assets. We talked about this stuff. We talked about the adjustment. Let's just spend a minute. I know it's accounting, but just bear with me. And I'm mindful of the time. Because I have to coach Special Olympics at 6 o'clock, whether you believe that or not. All these kids are waiting for me to lead them to another defeat. My record is unparalleled as a Special Olympics coach. We never win. So anyway, net assets broken up into in the public sector 3 different categories, and this one sometimes is broken up into 2. The real reserves are just 2 of them, this box and this box. Invested in capital assets of the buildings. The buildings are worth a lot, but they're not reserves. You can't sell the buildings and run the place. Restricted expendable is you set money aside that has to be spent on scholarships, future programs. The reason why Moody's, S&P, Fitch, et cetera, counts them, it's nice to have money set aside for something you know you need. So that's why we include them. But for most of these places, you'll see the vast majority is unrestricted. Admins always say, they're restricted, they're restricted. No, if the auditors put them in here, they're unrestricted. If there were legal strings tied to them, they would, oh, they're in the departments, we can't spend them. BS. They could spend them if they wanted to. I'm not going to go through these 3 methods to get them in the private sector. I'll just try to show you this very confusing box. Post 18. With donor restrictions, not part of reserves. We just don't even think about it. It's someone who's given money and said, you cannot spend the principal on anything. Maybe the interest, but you're not going to allow to spend the principal of the gift I give you. And we don't touch that in terms of reserves. Without donor restrictions, quasi-endowment funds, board-designated funds, strategic initiative funds, all those count. The board says, oh, we can't touch it. The board could change their minds anytime. If the board can change their mind, it all counts. The stuff that's part of the buildings, we take out. So it's just and by the way, we just announced we're having the Summer Institute in Reno in July. And Bonnie, I volunteered you to come and give this and give the reserve presentation. I'm volunteering you. It's actually not a joke, Bonnie. It's actually true. I'm actually going to volunteer you. So good luck with that. Hopefully you'll be in Reno in July, and hopefully we'll see some of you guys out there. So these are the 2 rating, this Fitch also, but these are the 2 rating systems. And so I'm going to show you where you get them. This is Moody's for higher ed. And you can see they're not all so great. They're decent, but they're not all so great as to where they are. This is S&P done by region. And this is both public and private in one. So Moody's has this scorecard. They have now had 4 different scorecards. This is the newest one that came out in late 2021 that they're going to use going forward. And CUNY's rating, which is really not all that relevant, but not a single institution in CUNY issues bonds on its own. Most of them issue bonds in New York, private and public, through the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York. And I'm going to show you how to get them a bit. But what I have here, this is where CUNY is. CUNY's got an AA2 rating, so they're kind of like here. And you can see with some of the variables, cash and investment to operating expenses, cash and investments to debt, they're not so great. They're really good on size. They're decent on operating performance, and they're decent on debt coverage. So this is why they have an AA rating, because they've got a couple here, a couple here, and a couple there. And again, in the summer, we'll get into it. I'm not just being flippant. It would take, if I was to go over how I got these for CUNY, that's about 2 hours right there. So, but here it is worth looking at the ratios, just so you have a sense of what's in there. EBITDA is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. It's like cash flows. It used to be cash flows. Now they call it this. Cash investments, how much you got. Compared to operating revenues, good enough. Compared to debt, and they really have 2 debt variables. They used to have these. The new system has more debt variables as a percentage of everything they used to have. There are 6 public universities that have AAAs from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Here they are. I do not work at University of Michigan. I work at Eastern Michigan. Do I work with the unions at University of Michigan? Do not work there. Forbes has a rating scheme for private institutions. They have not updated it since February 21, 2/22/21. I looked even yesterday. They have 7 variables, empirical variables, or more or less. And these are where you guys stand. Again, don't get mad at me if you don't like where you're at. I'm just reporting what Forbes has. And I'm going to show you now, since you asked, where you get the bond ratings from. And they're not easy to find. So there's 2 places you can get the bond ratings. And the first place is, and you can get an account at Moody's, it's free. You sign up for an account on Moody's. And I'm sharing with you now. This is the Moody's website, and you type in the name of the bond rating. And so Canisius College is in New York. So I click on them, and they have ratings withdrawn. So no help. Let's try Union College. Let's see if that one's in there. The answer is probably no, but we'll look anyway. Oh, no, there it is, A1. And August of 21. So there it is. And a lot of them, though, are through the dormitory authority of, the state of New York. And there's just so many of them. And that's Long Island University. There's so many, the dormitory authority of the state of New York, all the debts issued through those. And this is Long Island University, so you have to hope that you can find it for your university you're looking for. And that's how you find them. And it's not easy to find. There is another website, which I'm about to show you. Electronic Municipal Market Access. I'll put it in the electronic municipal market access, or EMMA. And that you can search by name here. If I again type in dormitory authority of the state of New York, you're going to get, but you don't know what you're going to get. But sometimes, let me try that again. Try to make this a little smaller so I see what I'm doing. There we go. Pick the one I want. Dormitory authority of the state of New York. And so here, and they issue so much, you don't know what you're going to get. If I just try, if I just tried, let's say St. Bonaventure. See what happens. And you can see, yeah. Let's get the more recent date. Right there. So it looks like some debt was issued in 16. And here's the debt itself. And you can see the rating is BBB plus. And within here, you get the original bond statement. And you could also get, when you click on continuing disclosures, you also get annual Appendix A report for the year posted 10/20/10/28. Along with the financial statements, you get all this great stuff. That's something that you should be able to get, but they talk about the history. I mean, this is when I said bond reports, just let me kind of show you the things they give you here. There's some empirical data coming up. I'm hoping. Here we go. Applications, acceptances, enrolled, median SAT. I don't know if you view this as relevant or not, but you know, some enrollment data. This is what they're showing to the bond reports: degrees conferred, retention and graduation rates. This is what they're showing to the bond raters. Sticker price and tuition and fees, room and board fees, total percent increase. All good stuff. Not stuff you can't get. You can get all this on iPads, but sometimes it's a little more, it's easy. It's interesting to see what they say. So those are the places I get the bond data: Moody's and the electronic database. With not always great luck. Okay, revenue distribution. Monroe Community College. This is one of the healthiest distributions you're ever going to see. Why? Look at the pie chart. There's not a dominant slice here. There's the state, federal Pell Grants, tuition and fees, local appropriation, grants and contracts, and then other. $138 million of current revenues. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Here's John Jay. Sorry, I'm doing John Jay again. Hopefully people from John Jay aren't sick of me doing him. But you can see the percentage coming from the state. That blue, 33.1, 20.3 coming from tuition. And all you guys in New York think you're underfunded. Just wait about 5 slides and you guys are going to leave here with a different tune. Utica College, their revenue distribution. So I got this from their audited statements. And tuition and fees, room and board, government grants, private, 83. Discount rate. We'll talk about the discount rate in a bit. You could see the percentage of total revenues for tuition went down. The big increase is right here in government grants. Private grants is a big percentage increase, but it's a decent increase also. But they got some local and federal grants to help them along with COVID. And so I do a dollar change and a percentage change. This, just let me show you the 3 variables I have here. This here is the percentage, this first panel here is the percent of total revenues from each source. That's the pie chart. I'll call that, I'll just say pie chart. The dollar change is 2021 tuition and fees minus 2020 tuition and fees. The percentage change is 2021 tuition and fees minus 2020 tuition and fees over 2020 tuition and fees. Any percentage change equals new minus old. I'm going to take a break from talking for a second. Let you guys catch up if you want to write that down or not. Again, the chat's being saved, like Sally said. You guys doing okay?
There was a question in the chat about
DASNY? DASNY is a dormitory authority of the state of New York. When a public or private institution wants to borrow money of higher education, they usually go through DASNY in New York. When Eastern Michigan, where I work, when they want to borrow money, they go to a bank and beg them to borrow and beg them to lend them money. St. Bonaventure goes through DASNY to borrow money because DASNY is big and will get them a better rate than if St. Bonaventure went to the bank by themselves. If that makes sense to you guys.
So is it like a collective?
Yeah, it is. It is. And they just, it's called a dormitory authority of the state of New York, but they don't just borrow money for dorms built at New York. They borrow money for everything. And most of the public and private institutions in your state of New York is borrowed through DASNY. Because Union College, say Bonaventure, you go to a bank, but you're not going to get as good a rate as you will from DASNY. So I don't know if that's good or bad. It gives them a lot of authority and the ability of political cahootness between DASNY and CUNY and SUNY and the governor's office and all that. They kind of all work together anyway, the governor's office, the city, and yeah. Anyway, enough of that. So this is, look at this pie chart for Union College. Look at tuition. This is not the same pie chart as John Jay or Monroe. So a private institution generally has a lower bond rating than a public institution because of what you see on the screen here. They put all their eggs in one basket. It's all tuition driven. Are they issuing bonds? DASNY is like this, they're like the Federal Reserve almost. That's the best way I can put it. They're like the Fed. They have access to all the money. They do whatever they want. Excuse me. It's a public entity. And the good is, of course, theoretically, the institutions get to borrow money freely, easily, and at a lower rate than if they went by themselves. Eastern Michigan can't call DASNY. University of Michigan can't call. There's no central, in my state, Ohio, there's no central place where we go to borrow money. The institutions borrow money, literally go to a bank on their own, just like you and I would. I don't know if you think that's good or bad. That's just the way it is. We also don't have a system office that's paying $800 million to administrators to do whatever they do. So, all right, New York College of Technology. Let's just start to look here. I've got here from 2000, I went all the way back to 2002 to 2020. The state appropriation, students and their families, the city, which basically has been 10 million, and then it jumped up in the last couple of years. Just, okay, I don't know how you feel about this, but this is reality. This is where I work. This is the one non-New York slide I put in here. You could shoot me for doing it. Sally, I said I would try to keep it to New York. I put my institution just to show the people in the state of New York that this is what the world is like outside of the state of New York. It's not always like, look at this. In 2002, it flipped from tuition being smaller than the state. Now look at it. Now this is because we have like 7 students left to go to our place. Our enrollment goes down so much. And the state certainly hasn't kept up with inflation. And if you did this graph for any institution in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and Wisconsin, you're seeing the same thing. Now, there are other states besides New York where it looks like this. California, New Mexico, Alaska, Hawaii, to give you 4. So it's not like New York's on its own, but those are 4 states for which the state appropriation is larger than tuition and fees. I spoke to Julie Schmidt just the other day. Julie's the executive director of AUP. Julie is in Colorado this week, all week, and she was actually in the governor's office with Randy from AFT, trying to get collective bargaining for higher ed employees in the state of Colorado. Colorado is worse than our state. It's worse than Michigan. Worse. This gap is bigger in Colorado than it is in Michigan, is my point. So it's so different by state. And in addition, things got worse here. I don't know if you guys remember this. You guys are all too young to remember 2010, but Rick Snyder got elected in Michigan. John Kasich got elected in Ohio. And Scott Walker got elected in Wisconsin. You guys may not know these names. You know, you guys could hate Cuomo all you like, and he's no star, I'll give you that. But he's not them. And the legislature in your state is a little different than the legislature where I work. And so before you start whining and complaining about everything, I know I'm being kind of pedantic here, but you have it so much better than most states in the country in terms of support for higher ed. So yeah, and what Jeff puts in, so in North Carolina is somewhat similar to what Jeff just put in the chat, that they have it part of the constitution of the state, et cetera, that they can't charge a certain amount and it has to be supported by the state and all that. So, and we talked about all that. So private universities, how much of the revenue comes from tuition? Now, I think, isn't there someone from NYU here? Did I hear somebody from NYU here? Yes, no, maybe. I put them in there, but okay, maybe they're not anymore. But these are the ones that I think I had. This is the percent. Look at Nazareth. I know there's someone from Nazareth signed up. Look how many are close to not, 85% up. tuition only, just tuition. And I mean, auxiliaries auxiliaries, housing, dining, they go with tuition. Look at NYU and Columbia. Why do you think that is? They've got research and they've got investments. They got endowments that are in the billions that spit off money that now Union and Vaughan, this is actually pretty healthy for a private. These are fairly low for privates. I mean, I only got 11 or 12 of them here. But again, and if you're at one of these private institutions here, I'm not saying anything bad. Anyone from St. John's here, by the way? Yes, no? Hello? Anybody out there from St. John's? No? Because I actually presented to them last year. So yeah.
Yes, yes, we're here.
I know you, Chris. Don't you know me? Do you remember me or you don't remember me?
I absolutely remember you. You're my idol.
You know, Chris, let's not get crazy, but you are the person that I dealt with at St. You again, it's funny. I remember you guys may not remember me, but I do have something on St. John's because when I saw your name, I'm like, okay, I gotta do something here. Just if you wait like 5 minutes, I'm gonna show you, and you're gonna tell me what's going on there because something's going on there since I was there 2 years ago. So anyway, this is the discount rate. Let's talk about discounting. It's such a big issue in the private sector, and I apologize to the public sector people for now. Numerator, endowed scholarships, institute scholarships, and discounts over tuition and fees, gross, sticker price. So tuition and fees gross is what what people, and this is not my term, this is what people in higher ed call it, is a sticker price. How much off of the sticker price are you getting? You can see Columbia's got the highest tuition, but not the highest discount rate. I'm not saying anything bad about Columbia, but you know what? They don't have to. They don't have to. They're so selective, and they could brag about how much financial aid they give. I think they're talking out of their, well, okay, whatever. And you can see the difference in, Utica. I know it's in a different, I know where Utica is. I've been there. Malloy's in Long Island, and they have a lower discount rate, but look at the tuition compared to the other privates. So, and sorry, this is just me showing off in Excel here. Just, using two different axes in Excel. If you want a class in Excel, I'm willing to give that as well to show you how to do that. But you got the discount rate on the right. And in general, the higher the tuition, the higher the discount rate. There's a correlation of positive 0.49, which is pretty good. Higher the discount rate, higher the tuition, or vice versa. HERF money, 3 different X. Complete discretion over the money that's not to the students. So let me get to, I know someone from Dutchess County signed up. I don't know if they're still here. Yes, no, maybe. But anyway, they're not here. I know they signed up. Over the 2-year period, Dutchess County was getting $28 million from the feds. 12 million had to go to students for financial aid, and 16 million could be spent however they want. And for many institutions, it's happening in fiscal 22, because you had a fiscal year that ended in May or June of 21, all that ARP money, HERF, Higher Education Emergency Relief Act, you see the acronym there. HERF 3 is the American Rescue Plan, or ARP. So those, you may hear administrators talk to, they use ARP all the time, the admins. They can't help themselves. So great to have it. So expense money. I showed you this already with Union College. And this is what I did with Union College. I did this analysis of 20 versus 21, instruction versus research. Institutional support expenses went up 10% from 20 to 21. Admin, instruction and research went up 1. WTF is all I say to that. Why is that possibly happening? And then in terms of salaries and wages, all the salaries and wages went down 2.8% from 20 to 21. Okay, who got hit? Who got hit the most? Bingo. Who got hit just about the least? Them. I'm sorry, I'm not buying. I ain't buying. So, all right. This is just me showing you what matches and doesn't match between the audit and iPads. It almost all matched except for these 2 categories, which they just put in different things. Everything else exactly matched from the audit statements to iPads, which is always good to know. And I always do this to see. I'm getting to St. John's. We did that with Manhattanville. Here, I'm almost there. I promise you, Chris, I'm almost there. So Manhattanville College Instruction for Institution Support, 19 and 20. Instruction salaries and benefits, percent of total salaries and benefits. We're barely half. We went down. So from 19 to 20, instruction salaries went down 1.4%. Institutional support salaries went up 6.3. Again, WTF. I did not have to look hard to find these examples. I didn't look hard. They exist almost everywhere. Why in the face of a pandemic are instructional salaries going down and admin salaries going up? I don't know. All right, this I took from Gutman's Fast Facts page, kind of just, and I just did a little brief thing here. Enrollment up 7%, faculty down 8%. No, no, from here to here. Why? Could be, David, could be, it could be, and we're going to talk about that with St. John's. Where's my St. John's slide? Did I miss my St. John's slide? I must have missed it. Where is my St. John's slide? I have to find this because this killed me. This absolute, maybe I think I had it earlier. I passed over it. It's just because you tell me if the whole place left. I'm going to get there in a second. If everyone just left the place. Here we go. Okay. I was with you guys in the middle of 20, right, Chris? Isn't that when I was with you guys?
Yeah, you were, that's right after the declaration of quote unquote exigency.
Okay, so this is what I found. So I looked at the AUP salary survey. And when I saw you would be here, I said, okay, I just want to see what's going on with salaries. I just wanted to see. The first thing I noticed was right here, the big decline in the number of faculty from 663 to 607. All right, maybe enrollment tanked. Well, enrollment went down, but it didn't completely crash. I mean, it went down fairly, but it didn't crash. It went down 7.3%. Faculty went down 8.4%, which is more obviously. But my question to you is, was there a buyout here? Did they lay people off? What happened here is my question.
There was a VSO. They've had 3 VSOs in the past several years, and so they're trying to slash payroll. And that was their strategy this time. We just finished an abbreviated round of collective bargaining, and they saved well into 7 figures at that VSO going forward.
That's a voluntary retirement.
Voluntary separation offer, yeah.
Voluntary, that's wonderful language. So I figured that's what it was, but I wanted to, I'm glad, obviously I'm happy you're here. And you don't usually see this, but that was brought up earlier. I could tell you as someone who's in his, just to say gently in my 60s, they don't stop asking me. My department head sends me an email every day. Have you seen the new updated voluntary phase retirement plan that they're doing? He just sent me a list. Just leave me alone. Could you just leave me alone? Do I have to leave tomorrow? They can't wait to get rid of us. They cannot wait to get rid of us. It's really unbelievable. And the offer at our place isn't very good. But I assume it, for a lot of people, the offer was good enough. But the other thing that bothers me about this, if I'm allowed to, when you see the decline in assistant professors like we're seeing here, it takes away the lifeblood of the university. I mean, St. John is a major research institution. Who's going to do the research if you don't bring in new blood? If you stop hiring faculty, what's going to happen? And well, you see this a lot. You see what I have here a lot, which is unfortunate. But unfortunately, but I just wanted to add, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make this just about you, but I just wanted to, I just had it, I knew it was in there. I put it earlier because didn't want to forget it. So anyway, this is Gutman, same kind of thing. I'll end on a good note. Graduation and Pell rates. Okay. Pell rate is percentage of undergraduates that are getting a Pell grant. And it's a measure of how many low-income students you have. And these are I did them separately for private and separated them out because they're obviously a different tuition structure. And, the graduation rate are very exemplary. I work at a place with a 39% graduation rate. But at Vaughan, isn't there someone here from Vaughan? Did someone say they're here from Vaughan? Yes.
Yeah,
By far, the highest percentage of students with Pell. Vaughan is a private institution from what I could tell. Is that accurate?
that's right.
In Flushing, where my New York Mets play, I may add.
Yes,
You can't be far from Chase. I call it Chase Stadium.
right around the corner.
City
Citi Field.
Field. Do you
Yeah.
call it Chase Stadium? Does anyone call it Chase Stadium? Am I the only one that does that?
Out of habit.
I don't have it. Yeah, I can't. Sorry, can't help it. But seriously, this is a big difference. I mean, look at the mean and the medians of I only have 12 institutions here. These are the people I chose. These are the ones that Sally sent me that are represented by the people at the meeting. So I didn't choose all the privates in New York, but I figured why not, the people who are here, that's who cares about this kind of stuff. And so I didn't cherry pick anything. I just picked whoever was here from the other day, from earlier in the week. And Vaughan is 54. The graduation rate's the lowest, but look at the correlation. What is the correlation? It's the correlation between the Pell rate and the grad rate and the graduation rate. Higher the Pell rate, lower the graduation. And and it's a measure of the use of part-time faculty, which I don't know if I got to as much as I would have liked. Let me talk about that. Let me talk about part-time faculty, and because the stuff at the very end is just from the grad stuff I just took from CUNY. But this here really does tell a story, and you at Vaughan should be proud of this. And I don't think you should be upset at that either, because that's a very high Pell rate. That means your institution has made a commitment to bringing in people, to giving people a chance that you clearly see others in the state of New York have not done, to the extent that you have done it at Vaughan. And I find that very admirable. And I don't know if that's administration driven, faculty driven. I'm not sure which it is. You could tell me if it's administrative or faculty driven or both.
I think both.
But it is something that's part of your DNA, if I'm allowed to use that phrase.
It really is. And there was a study done a few years back, which we always cite about, I think they called it financial mobility. And they took a measurement of taxes and what people paid or what their incomes were rather, between before they went to Vaughan and then 10 years after paying. And we had the highest upward mobility in the entire country. And it was thousands and thousands of schools that were surveyed. And a lot of it was because we're specialized in aviation and engineering, which are very high paying fields.
Yeah. But you're giving people a chance. The kind of numbers I just showed you from iPads, that's anyway. So anyway, last thing I want to leave, it was brought up in the chat and I didn't go over it. This is John Jay again. I'm sorry, I have so much on John Jay in here. Sorry about that. For the others, I looked at the last 5 years on iPads and who teaches. Tenure track down. Tenure track is new tenure track faculty, tenure track faculty. Then non-tenure track. So an increase in tenure, an increase in non-tenure track, a decrease in tenure track. And even though the number of part-time faculty have gone down, look at this graph. Kind of tells a story. And that was brought up in, part-time faculty treated horribly in terms of pay and everything else. Lack of voice mostly, but certainly represented very strongly by PSC. Represents part-time faculty. In Ohio, for example, part-time faculty are not allowed to unionize, whereas at PSC, it's a vital part of the union. So just wanted to show you that. And at the CUNY Grad Center, I finally got something in for the CUNY Grad Center, which is good. So where I noticed, the reason I like this one, look at the enrollment growth. You guys see the enrollment growth? Is anyone here from the Grad Center? No? All right, well, you guys know the CUNY Grad Center, I hope. So look at 26% enrollment growth. That's huge. From 7,300 students to 9,300 students in 5 years. It's huge growth. And now the grad teaching assistants, I think that may be part of who they are and part-time faculty. But still, the growth in part-time faculty is pretty significant. grad teaching assistants down, full-time faculty down in the face of this large enrollment growth. I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that. And it's great that they're growing, but the faculty, and there is some growth in tenure track, but they're still being taught by mostly grad teaching assistants and part-time faculty. And I don't know what you guys make of that, but someone had a comment about adjuncts earlier in the chat, and well, here it is, right in front of you. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it. That's all I got. You guys know how to find me. Sally knows how to find me. Here's how to find me. Seriously, you guys could ask me anything you want. I don't charge, for questions like that. So I hope you guys had a good time and learned something, and a lot to do, a lot to go over, but I think I had the right number of slides, maybe a little too many. But I hope that the people who were here all got something out of it in terms of your own institution. I tried, Sally, I did, to get everyone in there, but I don't know if I was successful.
Howard, you did a fantastic job. And I will say once again, for somebody who really hates math and numbers and accounting, you make it so much more interesting and accessible for people. So I am really appreciative of that. I
appreciate that.
enjoy
But
it.
remember, act collectively. Act collectively. Can you please? Yes, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Love you guys. And hopefully I'll see you guys again. Chris, it was good seeing you. And hopefully I will see some of you in Reno. Be great to see you. Bonnie, be great to see you there too. You're going, you have no choice, but rest of you guys, I hope to see you guys in Reno. So thanks, guys.
Have fun coaching. Thanks, Howard.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
So for the rest of you, we will this is being recorded. I will stop the recording in just a minute, but I wanted to let you know it is recorded. It will be sent a link to the registrants. If you have, as Howard said, this is available for your use. Take the PowerPoint, sit down, do a tutorial, do it with your chapters, do it with your members. But we're very happy to have been able to offer this training for you, and I hope that you found it useful. So you can save your chat. I will also save chat and make it available to people. If anybody has any questions now, I'm willing to stay around for a few minutes if people want to have a discussion, or if everybody wants to go on their way, either way.
Sally, I have a question about the files that will be made available to us.
Okay.
So are we talking about, because it's first is the recording, then is there going to be a separate file made available of his presentation?
That will be the recording. I believe Howard said that he would send me the PowerPoint.
Okay.
And that I can also make that PowerPoint available. So you'll have the presentation, the PowerPoint, and the chat.
That would be fantastic. That would be really great. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Very happy to take care of that. I'm very thankful for everyone that came. Any other questions or comments before we close?
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Great to see everyone.
Great.
Sally, I have a quick question.
Sure.
We are trying to do like an inaugural chapter event. It's going to be a virtual event in a couple of weeks. And I was wondering if there's any way, can I write you to ask you if there's any way you could pop into that meeting for a couple of minutes and just say a greeting?
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. I also have a short presentation that I have prepared for chapters that are forming, or new chapters, that talk to them about what the state conference is all about, the things that we offer. A little bit about, some of the connections that we have with national and things that we're working on. So yeah, absolutely. Just send me an email and let me know. Happy to do that.
All right, great. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Really appreciate all that organizing that you did.
That's great. I'm glad it was useful to everybody. Howard is pretty amazing. I remember seeing him do this presentation at the NEPA, Northeast Pennsylvania Regional Alliance meeting. And I was very serious. I do not enjoy this at all in terms of the number stuff. And I found it utterly fascinating. So, and incredibly useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wonderful,
Great.
wonderful.
Thank you again. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And please keep in contact. Check out our website and make sure you register for the spring meeting and conference coming up April 8th and 9th.
So wait, Peter, are you still here? You had a question in the chat about faculty senate line items. Do you mean like for the actual your faculty senate budget? Or the budget, if it's a line item in the university budget? So I don't know if Peter's still there.
I think he's left.
Okay, I will.
I don't see him anymore, Mary Rose.
He just.
But we can address
okay.
it. We can address it separately.
Sure.
Okay.
Great. Thanks,
Great.
folks.
Great, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Or are we all set?
Thanks, Sally.
Good. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And I will stop our recording. You have a great afternoon.